La Llorona is without a doubt one of the most iconic figures in Mexican folklore. Although her backstory and the way she manifests varies a little from region to region, she always presents herself as a weeping woman. She is easily recognizable. This weeping woman is usually dressed in white and is doomed to roam the earth looking for her children. With her distinctive cry of "Ay, mis hijos!", which means "Oh, my children," she weeps and wails as she desperately looks for the children she herself killed. Every single Mexican child, myself included, is well acquainted with this story. No matter where in Mexico you are, there is always a place near you where she is said to appear. But whenever I heard this story, even as a little girl, there was always something that rubbed me the wrong way about it. Despite the regional variations in this story, her motivation for killing her own children is always because of a man. A man has wronged her, and in her desperation, her only way to regain control is to commit this atrocious act, symbolizing that the only power Mexican women have had for many years is tied to their ability to provide descendants for men. For this reason, I was super excited when author V Castro announced that she was coming out with a new horror novel that puts a feminine twist on this folktale. And even more excited, I was invited to participate in the book tour hosted by Hear Our Voices, an organization that aims to match up writers and readers from underrepresented groups in literature. So today I am hosting a stop in this book tour with a reading blog of The Haunting of Alejandra by V Castro. This is Michelle's Melancholia, where we read books to fear and shed a tear. And in this reading vlog, we'll see if we can reimagine the story of La Llorona by reading The Haunting of Alejandra. As usual, I will add some clips with my first impressions as I was reading the book, and I'll be back with my final thoughts. Okay, so I've started reading The Haunting of Alejandra, and it's giving me so much anxiety. Let me set the scene for you. As soon as we open up the book, we are thrown in a scene where a woman named Alejandra is trying to lock herself in her bathroom in order to have just a couple of minutes to herself. But her children are knocking on the door, and her husband is screaming to her from downstairs, telling her to hurry up and go make dinner. And this poor woman is just having a breakdown in the shower. I've only read up to about 20%, and most of it has been us getting to know Alejandra in her daily life. We find out that even though she loves her children, she is very unhappy in her role as a stay-at-home mom. And we also explore some other things that have happened in her life that have caused her trauma and is manifesting as pain and frustration in her present life. And even though it is a complex issue, honestly, I think her life would be much improved if she got rid of that husband. That husband is the stuff of nightmares. He is so useless, and not only useless, but also super demanding. Honestly, the rage that was brewing inside of me while I was reading some of his parts. I'm just hoping my girl Alejandra kicks him to the curb, because she clearly deserves much better. Anyways, this is just the very setup of the story. In terms of the horror component, all we know is that Alejandra has been seeing some kind of ghostly apparition, and it seems to manifest at times where she is really stressed out and is perhaps whispering some not so nice things in her ear. But I don't have a clear vision of where this is going so far. We did get a flashback, or I don't know if this is going to be like a dual timeline kind of thing, but we went way back to the times of the Spanish conquest. And I know this book includes a lot of Mexican folklore, so I'll be interested to see if it pulls from those really ancient beliefs. I am now halfway through the book. I really like the fact that we now got to read a little bit from Alejandra's mom's perspective when she was younger. So we actually get to see how this entity has been haunting women from Alejandra's ancestry line for many generations. That is pretty interesting. So it's not a dual timeline. I think we're gonna get like different snapshots from at least 3 women at 3 different time points. I think up to this point the story has moved quite slowly. We are still now learning more and more about Alejandra's past and her circumstances and how these have affected her. There have been a couple more scenes of horror where this entity manifests itself, but they have been quite understated. I am hoping that this will pick up in the second half of the book. I think I now have a more clear idea of where the story is going, I think, but no idea yet as to how the whole thing is going to get resolved. So I'm going to read a little bit more, probably up to 75%, and do one more check-in. Okay, so just a very quick update at 75% through, because things have really picked up speed and I want to keep reading. As I said, I felt like in the first half, the horror scenes were few and far between, but in the second half, things are happening and it's pretty spooky. So it's the type of horror that is scary in a straightforward way, so what you see is what you get. There is not a lot of tension. I guess I would describe it as the type of horror you would find in a Conjuring Universe movie, where the characters straight up see these apparitions and actually interact with them in a very direct way. I really like how the mystery of what's going on has started unraveling. I feel like there's still a lot to understand, so I don't know how that's going to work out because we are running out of pages and I still have too many questions. Anyways, it looks like we are on track for a strong finish, so I'll just continue until the end and I'll be back to give you my final review. Alright, so overall I enjoyed this book very much. There were many things I liked about it, but also some that I didn't like so much, so let's break this down. First, I absolutely loved the concept of this book. Not only because it includes the very famous folktale, but also how all this symbolism came to play in the story. I know the book has a very heavy theme of motherhood, and although I am not a mother, I am the daughter of a Mexican woman. And I can speak from experience about the amount of self-reflection and self-healing that it takes to try and break down that very specific brand of multi-generational trauma that Mexican women carry with them. I truly feel like V Castro absolutely nailed the essence of this experience. Regarding how this concept was executed, I do have a couple of notes. The first one is that even though this was a full-length novel, I still feel like it could have been longer. And this would have given an opportunity to even further develop Alejandra as a character. There are many complexities to who she is as a person. She has gone through a lot. So I felt like in order to get all of these across, the author had to rely more on telling us rather than showing us. I felt like there was a bit too much inner monologue explaining us how she felt rather than having opportunities for us to get to know her in maybe a more organic way. And the same was true for some of the other women in the story. I would have liked to spend more time with them. In a similar vein, I also think that we could have spent more pages trying to understand exactly what is this entity that's been haunting them. But instead, I feel like the author had to directly tell us what this entity was because there was just not enough space to create more of a mystery. All of this could be a personal preference, though. You know that I love a slow burn. I love a very wordy, hyper detailed story, but I know that's not the case for everyone. Some people really like the story to get to the point, and that's definitely what you get here. The other thing that I didn't fully love is that Alejandra's self-examination process was written in a very straightforward way, which is totally fine because there are very important lessons to be learned in this book, but for me, some pages felt a little bit too self-help book. There were too many motivational quotes next to each other. And especially because the plot actually involves Alejandra seeing a therapist, it was all a bit too on the nose for me. But also my personality definitely tends to be much more moody than positive, and maybe that's why some parts made me cringe a little bit, but I can 100% see how some people might actually enjoy these tidbits of reflection and positive affirmations. The messages were actually beautiful and I do believe them. I just cringe very easily. Those really are my two only criticisms, so let's talk about the things I really liked about this. I already mentioned the general concept, but I was also blown away by how the author included one other aspect that is very important in Mexican culture, or at least how I grew up, and that is the feeling of living in this weird interface between mysticism and organized religion, which will usually be Catholicism. This was written in such a genuine way. For many people, it is very normal to believe in both, and at different times in their lives embrace more of one or more of the other, or a mixture of both. And I loved how different characters approached this in different ways to draw the strength necessary to fight their haunting. I think in general it was such a fascinating experience to read a book in which I could actually see so much of myself in the story, although at times it was a bit freaky because actually my middle name is Alejandra and the horrible husband in the story also shares a name with my partner, so that was weird. Of course, I have to talk about the horror elements, and in this area, V Castro blew it out of the water. The descriptions of the creature / entity were disgustingly beautiful, actually. There was so much care put into describing what it was made of, what it was clothed with, how it moved, how it spoke. Some very cool imagery there. I was also surprised to see some pretty intense gore and body horror, especially involving female bodies that were so unapologetically horrifying, really putting it all out there. In everything I've read from V Castro, I really admire how she doesn't shy away from female-specific bodily functions, and she closed this book with one of those scenes, and it was amazing. Just to wrap this up, I feel like even though I don't always completely gel with V Castro's writing style, I will be 100% reading everything she puts out. She just has such a unique voice in horror right now, and I love that she is so fearless and fiercely feminist. And reading a V Castro book is just such a cathartic experience for me. I didn't cry at the end of this one, but I was close. I got, that tingly sensation in the back of your eyes, and I did call my mom as soon as I closed the book. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed the review and the vlog. If you have read this book, let me know what you thought of it, and if you haven't, let me know if you want to read it, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!